need to tell you what just happened. I'm in the bathroom. Terminal 4. I've got maybe 10 minutes before Marcus starts wondering where I am. I left him with the woman from the pretzel stand. I gave her $20. And I said family emergency. And she looked at me like she understood. And I don't know if she did. I don't know if anyone could. And I need to say this out loud before I lose it. Before the version of me that just walked out of that phone call disappears into the version of me that has to function, that has to pick up her son and decide what to do next. So I'm recording this. I don't know who this is for. Maybe it's for no one. Maybe it's for Marcus someday, if someday ever comes. Maybe it's just for the microphone, because I need a witness and the microphone is all I've got. Okay. My name is Claire. My son's name is Marcus. He is 5 years old. 12 minutes ago, I received a phone call from my own voice. Not similar to my voice. Not a recording of my voice. Not some algorithm that scraped my social media and stitched together something that almost passes. My voice. Exactly my voice. The one I've been embarrassed by for 31 years because it sounds too young. Because people always ask if my mother is home when I call on the phone. Because it has a specific quality I've never been able to describe except to say, it sounds like me. And there is no one else. It sounds like. It was my voice. 20 years older. Let me back up. Let me try to do this in order. Because the order matters. We've been in this airport since 9 this morning. The flight to Portland was delayed twice. First weather, then a mechanical issue that they described as minor in the tone people use when they don't want you to think too hard about what minor means on an aircraft. Marcus has been perfect. The way he sometimes is in public spaces. This uncanny calm that settles over him in airports and museums and anywhere with high ceilings. He's fascinated by the scale of things. He walks around with his neck craned back, counting ceiling panels, measuring the world against himself, and finding the world enormous and apparently delightful. We had breakfast. We walked the length of the terminal twice. He found a toy car in his jacket pocket, the red one with the silver stripe, the one he found in a grocery store parking lot 2 weeks ago. And I let him keep it because he looked at it with such complete joy that I couldn't say no. I should have said no. It came off the ground. I thought about germs for 30 seconds and then I let it go. That's the kind of mother I am. I pick my battles. I let him have the parking lot. Toy car. We were walking toward the gate. His hand in mine. Always 2 fingers. Always the same 2 fingers. He's done it since he learned to walk. This specific grip that is both loose and absolute. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. I answer unknown numbers because I'm perpetually expecting some logistical call. I forgot to anticipate. The contractor. The insurance company. A school administrator. The background hum of adult life is mostly unknown numbers, and I pick them up because the alternative is playing voicemail catch-up for days. So I answered, and I heard myself. The first word she said was my name. Not hello, not is this Claire. Just my name. Claire. In my voice, my cracked, older, exhausted voice. And the way she said it, like she'd been waiting to say it for a long time. Like the word itself was something she'd been carrying and was finally setting down. I stopped walking, just stopped. right in the middle of the concourse. A woman with a roller bag nearly hit my arm. Marcus kept walking for 2 steps and then stopped too, because our hands were connected. Because when I stop, he stops. She asked me not to hang up. She said she'd been trying to reach this moment for 3 years. She said she had 4 minutes of battery left. She said she needed me to listen. I told Marcus to stay close. I pressed the phone harder against my ear, and I listened. She said her name was Claire. She said she was 51 years old. She said she was me 20 years from now, and that the specific mechanism by which she was calling me from the future was less important than what she needed to say. And she needed to say it before the battery died, and she needed me to believe her. And she knew exactly how impossible that was, and she was asking anyway. Then she told me to leave my son in the airport. Not to take a call and step away for a moment. Not to put him in the care of airport staff while I handled an emergency. She told me to go to the family services desk in Terminal 4, to leave Marcus there, and to walk out of the airport and disappear. Change my name. Change my phone. Go somewhere no one could find me. And to never try to get him back. She said the word forever. And the terminal noise, all of it, the announcements, the rolling bags, the families, the gate attendants, the low constant roar of an airport doing its job, all of it became a single wall of sound that I was standing on the other side of. My name is Claire. And I want to be specific about something. I am not a woman who panics. I want to be clear about this because it matters for what I'm about to tell you. I have a therapist. Her name is Dr. Reyes. I see her every 3rd Tuesday. And she has a phrase she uses about me. She says I have an extraordinary capacity for compartmentalization. She doesn't mean it as a compliment. She means it as a careful clinical observation about the way I deal with difficult things by placing them in separate sealed containers inside my mind, and then functioning as though the containers aren't there. She means it as something to work on. But the practical result of this is that I don't fall apart in public. I don't cry in airports. I don't make scenes. I am someone who, when things go wrong, gets very still and very methodical. I find the next step. I take it. I find the one after that. I am telling you this because what happened to me in that phone call happened to a woman who is not easily shaken, and I am shaking. Right now, in this bathroom, I am shaking in a way I have no container for. So when I tell you that this woman, this voice, this impossible phone call broke through every wall I have built, I need you to understand the architecture of what she broke through. She said she had 4 minutes of battery, and she used every one of them. The first thing I did was try to explain it away. Of course I did. I'm an engineer. I build systems. I understand mechanisms. I know that voice synthesis has reached a level of sophistication that can fool people. I've read about it. I've thought about the implications. I've had the abstract conversation with colleagues about the ethics of deepfakes and voice cloning. I know this technology exists. I told her I thought she was a scam. And she said 2 words that emptied that theory like water from a glass. She said, the box. Not, what box? Not a question, not a probe. She said, the box, the way you say something that belongs to you, with ownership, with the particular intimacy of a shared secret. And then she said more. She described a box under the floorboard of my childhood bedroom. A box I put there when I was 11 years old. a box that I have never, in 20 years, described to a single living person. Not to Daniel, not to my mother, not to Dr. Reyes, who knows the bones of what my childhood contained, but not this specific artifact of it. She said she knew what was in it. She said, a photograph, a folded piece of paper, and something small and physical that I took from my stepfather's dresser because I was 11 and I didn't have words for what I needed, only hands. I have not thought about that box in years. When I think about my stepfather, which is rarely clinically in the sealed container, the way Dr. Reyes and I have worked toward, I don't think about the box. The box lives in a part of my memory that I have successfully, thoroughly, maybe even permanently buried. She knew about the box, not the general shape of my difficult childhood, the specific object, the exact contents. And I understood that either something had gone fundamentally wrong with the laws of physics, or I was speaking to myself. Neither option was comfortable. I kept listening. She was afraid. That's the thing I keep coming back to. Even now, even in this bathroom, with my hands braced against this sink and my reflection looking back at me like a stranger. She was afraid. I know what my voice sounds like when I'm afraid. It goes very flat, very careful, the way I get when I'm holding something, fragile. And her voice was doing that. My voice, doing the flat, careful thing that means the thing inside is too big to let surface. She was trying so hard to stay together, for my benefit. She was calling me from 20 years in the future and using her last 4 minutes of battery. And she was trying to stay composed for my benefit, because she knew, because she is me, that I would be more likely to believe her if she was methodical than if she fell apart. She was using the compartmentalization against me, my own tool, my own architecture. I almost admired it. She told me there was a window, 48 hours. She said that within that window, something happens. Something she had spent 20 years failing to stop from her side of time. Something she had exhausted every possible intervention trying to prevent. And the only place where the chain could be broken was here, this terminal, this specific Tuesday morning, this specific moment with Marcus's hand, mine. She said the reason was simple and devastating. She said, if Marcus is not with you when the window opens, he doesn't get taken. And she said, taken the way you say a word that has ruined you. The way a word sounds after it has been pressed against a wound long enough to become part of the wound. She said, they can't take what they can't find. And they can't use what isn't connected to you. The connection is the vulnerability. Your love is the leverage. Remove yourself from the equation. Not just hide, not just run, but permanently, verifiably remove yourself through channels that produce a paper trail that proves you abandoned him. And the leverage disappears. And without the leverage, the window is just 48 hours of nothing, just time passing. I asked her who they were. She said she couldn't tell me. I asked why. She said, because the version of this where you know who they are is the version where you try to fight them, and you're not faster than what's coming. The only move that works is the invisible one. The quiet devastation instead of the loud heroics. Disappear. Let Marcus disappear from your orbit and let him be safe. I want to tell you where I was standing when she said all of this. Because the where of it matters, the sensory reality of it, the specific horror of being given information that size in a place this ordinary. I was standing maybe 20 feet from a Cinnabon. The smell of hot cinnamon and sugar was everywhere. It was the smell of airports, the smell of departures, the specific American sweetness that means you're about to unmow somewhere. And underneath it, when the ventilation shifted, the smell of jet fuel. The two smells mixing in a way that should have been nauseating, and somehow wasn't. Somehow just was the smell of that moment, of that particular suspended Tuesday morning. Marcus was next to me. He had found the toy car in his jacket pocket again and was rolling it back and forth across the back of his hand. Red, silver stripe. He does this, finds an object and works it, turns it over, finds its physical properties, catalogues them. He's been doing this since he could hold things. Daniel calls it engineering brain. I call it being Marcus. The terminal was full. Tuesday morning full. Business travellers, families heading somewhere warmer, students with overstuffed backpacks, a tour group in matching lanyards, an elderly couple moving very slowly and very deliberately, like people who have learned that airports are not worth rushing through. All of this was happening around me. The whole ordinary machinery of human transit was happening in my immediate periphery. And I was listening to my own voice tell me to give my son to a stranger. Here's when I started believing her. I told her I needed proof. Not the box. The box was personal, historical. It proved she knew things about my past that no one else could know. But I needed forward proof, future proof. I needed evidence that what she was describing was real and not the most elaborate, specifically tailored psychological manipulation ever constructed. I told her to tell me something about the next 48 hours, something verifiable, something that would happen before the window opened, and she did. She told me about the hotel. She told me that our flight was delayed, which I already knew, and that I had booked a room at the Marriott near the airport 20 minutes ago on my phone, which I had just done that. My confirmation email was sitting in my inbox. She said the room number on my confirmation was 814. She said when I got to the front desk, they would give me room 912 by mistake. She said I would notice the mistake because the button for the 9th floor on the elevator would stick. She said I would go back down to the desk. And she said, while you're standing at the elevator, before you go back down, you will see Arsh man in a grave or tracksuit with a red gym bag. He will drop his keycard and not shriek. You'll pick it up. You'll look around for him. He'll already be gone. Into the elevator, through a door somewhere. You'll bring the keycard to the front desk. The woman working the desk at that moment will have a name tag that says Belen, B-E-L-E-N. She'll take the keycard and she'll look like she's about to cry. Not dramatically, just her eyes will do something, and you won't know why. And you'll think about it before you fall asleep that night. You'll wonder about her, about what the keycard meant to her, about whether it was just a keycard. I filed all of this away, every detail, the room numbers, the sticky elevator button, the grey tracksuit, the red gym bag, the name Belen, the almost crying. She kept going. She said, tomorrow morning at exactly 7:14 a.m. your phone will ring, Arizona area code. You won't recognize the number. You won't answer. They won't leave a message. At 9:30, Marcus will ask you for a strawberry cloud. You won't know what that is. He means a strawberry smoothie. He saw someone making one at the hotel breakfast, and he wants one and he doesn't have the word for it yet, so he'll call it what it looks like. Strawberry cloud. She said to it like she was reciting something sacred. She said, "You'll buy him one. While you wait for it, there's a crack in the countertop of the hotel breakfast bar. It runs from one corner to about the middle. It looks exactly like Italy. The boot of it. The shape of the whole country in a crack in a hotel countertop. You'll see it. And you'll think about Venice. About a trip you almost took with Daniel before Marcus was born. About why you didn't go. About the specific feeling that comes with that memory, the not going. And Shiva said, you'll recognize that feeling. It's been sitting inside you for a long time. You'll finally put a name to it that morning. I thought about the Venice trip. Daniel had found flights. We'd looked at hotels, a specific one in Dorsoduro with a courtyard. I'd made a folder. And then there was the pregnancy, unplanned, but not unwelcome, and the folder sat on my desktop for years. And then one day, I deleted it and didn't think about it again. Except that I had thought about it again. More than I'd admitted to anyone. And then she told me about Marcus being sick. I want to slow down here, because this is the moment. This is the moment where the last wall came down. She said, when Marcus is 3 years old, he gets sick. A respiratory thing. She said it isn't serious. In the final accounting, he recovers, he comes home, he grows up. But she said, there are 3 days where you don't know that yet. 3 days in the pediatric ward. And she said, you sleep in the chair by his bed. Every night, 3 nights. Daniel goes home to sleep because he has work. And she said, and the specific flatness with which she said, it still hits me. You hate him for it. Completely. Silently. You never say so. You sit in that chair, she said, for 3 days, and you talk to Marcus while he sleeps. You tell him things. You tell him about your childhood, the real one. Not the version you've curated for polite conversation, not the bones-only clinical version you give to Dr. Reyes. The real one. You tell him about your stepfather. You tell him about the box under the floorboard. You tell him about the photograph inside it, and the folded piece of paper, and what you took from the dresser, and why you took it, and what you needed it to mean. You tell a sleeping 3-year-old the thing you have never told a conscious adult. Because you need to say it out loud to someone who won't remember it. I pressed the phone so hard against my ear that it hurt. Because she was right. I did that. Not yet. Marcus is 5. He's never been hospitalized. I have never sat in a chair in a pediatric ward. That moment is somewhere ahead of me, but she described it with such complete, first-person, inside-the-moment accuracy that I understood she wasn't describing something she'd read about or researched or constructed. She was describing a memory, her memory, my memory, a memory that hasn't happened to me yet. She said, he recovers, he comes home. He never knows you told him any of that. He carries none of it. He just recovers and comes home and asks for strawberry shampoo. And you buy the yellow bottle because he asked. And you never tell anyone else because you are very, very good at keeping things inside. We both are. She said, it has not served us. I asked her how she found a way to call me. She said it was the wrong question. I asked again. She said, the most important question right now is whether you're going to do it. Whether you have the specific kind of courage it takes to destroy yourself to save someone else. And she said, and I'm going to say these words, exactly because they are the words, the actual words she used. She said, not the dramatic kind of courage, not the heroic kind, the other kind, the quiet, ugly, devastating kind that nobody makes movies about. I've been thinking about that. The quiet, ugly, devastating kind. Because she's right that there are two types. I've always known that. There's the kind that looks like courage from the outside, running into burning buildings, standing on a stage, confronting someone who has power over you. The kind with witnesses, the kind that produces a narrative. And then there's the other kind, the kind you perform in an airport bathroom while your son is eating a pretzel. The kind that doesn't produce a story, because to produce a story, you would have to explain what you did. And what you did is incomprehensible. The kind that doesn't have witnesses, because the whole point is that you disappear. That's the kind she was asking for. I asked her what would happen to me if I did it, what the aftermath looked like. I needed to know the mechanics, the practical geography of after. She didn't soften it. She said I would fall apart for a while, extensively. She said there would be an investigation, abandonment of a minor, something like that, whatever the legal category is, and that I would be investigated and eventually cleared because the family services desk had cameras, and the cameras would show me kissing Marcus goodbye and telling him I loved him and telling him to be a good boy. She said I would serve community service. She said I would go back to therapy. And then she said I would rebuild. Slowly, imperfectly, never entirely. I asked about Marcus. She said he'd be placed at 7, adopted by a family in Oregon. She said he'd keep his name. She said he'd become an engineer. She almost laughed when she said it. This small, fractured sound that was the shadow of a laugh. She said he'd run every Saturday morning. That he'd have 2 kids of his own. That he wouldn't know about me. Not for a long time. And then she said, when he's 34, he goes looking, because they always go looking. He finds me. She stopped there. I asked what happened when he found me. She said, that part is yours. I didn't get to see it. I'm not going to get to see it. That part belongs to the version of this where you walk away today. I didn't know what to do with that. I'm still not sure what to do with that. I asked her to tell me the worst moment. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, the moment I'm in right now, this phone call, knowing what it costs. And I said, no, I mean after. The worst moment in the 20 years after. She breathed, and she said, his birthday every year. But the 10th, Marcus's 10th birthday, that one was the worst, because 10 felt like something, like a marker she'd been watching approach from 20 miles away, watching it get closer for years. He was a decade old somewhere, and she didn't know where. She didn't know what his face looked like at 10. She didn't know what he wanted for his birthday. She didn't know what scared him, or what made him laugh, or whether he still called smoothies strawberry clouds. She didn't know any of it, and she had done that. That unknowing was something she had chosen. She said, I went to a grocery store. I bought a piece of birthday cake, the kind with the plastic flowers on top, the ones that look vaguely like roses but aren't quite. I took it home. I sat at my kitchen table, alone, and I sang Happy Birthday. Quietly, to no one, to the air, to whatever direction Oregon was from wherever I was living. She said that was the worst moment. The birthday cake and the plastic flowers and the singing to no one. That was the one that almost broke me past the point of repair. I am holding Marcus's 5th birthday in my memory right now. The fire truck cake from the bakery that didn't get the proportions right. The sprinklers in the backyard. His face, completely and helplessly open with joy. 30 photographs on my phone, one of them on my lock screen. His face in the water from the sprinkler, and his whole self just entirely delighted, just entirely present in the delight. I am holding that, and I am standing in a bathroom, and I am trying to breathe. She was almost out of battery by the time she told me about Venice. I had asked her for one good thing, one moment, something from the other side of the worst of it, something that proved the after was survivable. She said, Venice, just the word first, like she was testing it. Then she said, you go. Finally, you go alone. You're 43. You wake up early, before the city is awake. Because the city is never actually asleep, but it has these hours in the very early morning where it gets close. You walk across the Rialto Bridge at 6 in the morning when it's nearly empty. The Litajuchits is doing that thing it does on water. The way it comes apart. The way it breaks into pieces and then reforms. And you can't decide if you're watching one thing happen or many things happening. That light on that canal. That specific morning, she said, you stand there for a long time. And you think about Marcus. You think about where he is in the world. And somewhere in the world, Marcus is 37 years old, and he's running on a Saturday morning somewhere in Oregon, past trees you've never seen, on a road you don't know, with 2 kids who have his eyes, or her eyes, or both, and he's... She paused. She chose the word carefully. She said, he's all right, Claire. He is all right, and she said, you are standing on a bridge in Venice at 6 in the morning with the light doing that thing on the water. And you are also all right. The line went quiet, not dead. I could still hear her breathing, this specific, tired, 20 years older version of my breathing. And she said, very simply, go, and then she was gone. I stood in the middle of Terminal 4 for what my body registered as a very long time and what the clock probably measured as 15 seconds. Then I did what I always do when something is too big for the containers. I started walking. Not toward the desk. I want to be clear about that. I didn't make a decision in those 15 seconds. I walked toward Marcus, who was still exactly where I'd left him, rolling the toy car across the back of his hand, watching the escalator mechanism with that specific concentrated curiosity that is one of his most completely Marcus qualities. He wanted to understand the escalator. He wanted the actual, real answer for how the steps fold into each other at the top. I knelt down, right there in the middle of the concourse. I took his face in my hands. He let me. He always lets me. He looked at me with Daniel's eyes and his own expression. That quality of open, complete, unguarded attention that children have before they learn to guard themselves. He waited to find out what this was about. And I said, I need you to know something. I need you to know that you're the best thing I have ever done or been part of or known. You are exactly what you're supposed to be. And whatever happens, that doesn't change. That is one of the true things. The absolute ones. He considered this. He said, okay, can we get a pretzel now? Something came out of my throat. That was not a laugh and not a sob and didn't have a name. I said yes. I stood up. His hand found my fingers, automatically. Those same 2 fingers, that same specific grip, the one he's been doing for 4 years without knowing he's doing it. The weight of it. That small, absolute, ordinary, extraordinary weight. I walked him to the pretzel stand. I gave the woman a 20. And I came in here. Here is what I know. The blue sign is still out there. Family Services. Left of the atrium. I can picture exactly where it is. Blue text, white background. Agatha is working it. Or a woman named Agatha is working it. A woman who has been doing this job for 11 years, who apparently is very good at making scared children feel less scared. I have never met her. I know her name. The hotel is booked. Room 814 on my confirmation. I will check in tonight, and they will give me 912, and the elevator button will stick, and I will see a man in a grey tracksuit with a red gym bag, and he will drop a keycard, and I will pick it up, and a woman named Belen will look like she's about to cry. Or none of that will happen. One of those is true. Tomorrow, at 7:14 a.m., an Arizona number will call. Or it won't. Marcus will ask for a strawberry cloud. Or he won't. There will be a crack in a countertop that looks like Italy, and I will think about Venice, and something inside me will finally have a name. Or none of it will happen, and I will have been standing in an airport, having a psychotic episode triggered by the stress of a delayed flight. One of those is true. I will know by tomorrow morning which one. But here's the thing I keep circling back to. Here's the thing that I cannot get around no matter how I approach it. She knew about the box. I have told no one about that box. Not Daniel, who I have loved and will apparently divorce in 3 years. Not my mother, who has enough complicated feelings about that period of my childhood. Offshoots, without the specific artifact of the box. Not Dr. Reyes, who knows the architecture without the specific stone. Not Sasha, not anyone. The box is mine, entirely and only mine. And she knew what was in it. There is a version of this where that is explainable. There is a version of this where someone, somehow, accessed something I don't know they accessed, and constructed the most elaborate, carefully researched, specifically targeted psychological manipulation in the history of scam calls, specifically designed or happening to be in terminal for this airport on a Tuesday in November with her 5-year-old son. I cannot rule that out. But I can't hold it without noticing that it requires more explaining than the other version. The other version. The one where she is me. Marcus is eating a pretzel right now. I can imagine it exactly. He will have gotten the one with the cinnamon sugar because he always picks the sweetest option available. He has my sweet tooth, which is genetic, which is mine to take responsibility for. He will be eating it and watching the escalator and rolling the toy car across his knee and thinking about how steps fold into each other at the top and disappear into the mechanism. He is 5 years old. He smells like strawberry shampoo. He calls smoothies strawberry clouds. He carried a parking lot to toy car in his pocket for 2 weeks because it was red and it had a silver stripe, and it delighted him. He holds my fingers, 2 of them, automatically, without thinking, the way you hold the things you trust. He is sitting 20 feet from a family services desk, and he doesn't know it. I am standing in a bathroom, and I am trying to figure out what kind of woman I am. She said something before the battery died, before Venice. I almost didn't include it because it's the thing that is hardest to say out loud. She said, I didn't have this information in time. In my version, by the time I understood what was happening, I was already inside the 48 hours. Already inside the window. I tried to run. I put Marcus in the car at 2 a.m. He was 5. He was exactly 5. And I drove. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew we needed to be somewhere else. And she said, he was so scared. He woke up in his car seat at 2 a.m. and he didn't understand why we were moving and why it was dark and why his mother's hands were shaking on the steering wheel. He was so scared, and I couldn't tell him why, because I didn't have the words and I didn't have the time, and I had already run out of every option except the running. She said, it didn't work. She said it very quietly, not for drama, not for emphasis, just as a fact. It didn't work. The running didn't work. The window opened anyway, and Marcus was there when it did, and that was... She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. I've been finishing it ever since. The honest thing is, the thing I owe this microphone, this witness, whoever finds this, is that I don't know yet what I'm going to do. I am 31 years old and I am standing in a bathroom in Terminal 4. And I have been on the phone with myself, and I have been given an impossible choice, and I don't know. What I know is that the blue sign is 100 steps away. What I know is that his hand, it fits around 2 of my fingers. What I know is that somewhere in Oregon, in a version of the world that may or may not be reachable from this bathroom, a 34-year-old man goes looking, because they always go looking, and he finds me. What I know is that a woman who is me stood on a bridge in Venice at 6 a.m. and watched the light come apart on the water, and she was all right. The quiet, ugly, devastating kind of courage. Nobody makes movies about it. But she did it? In her version. The version where she didn't have the information in time. She survived the thing she didn't choose, and she found her way to a phone call she spent 3 years engineering. She spent 3 years of her surviving on the purpose of getting back to this terminal. Back to me, back to the moment where the chain can be broken. She spent 3 years for 4 minutes of battery. For me, I have to go back out there, I have to pick up my son and his cinnamon pretzel and his parking lot toy car, and I have to make a decision that will either be the worst thing I ever do or the only thing that saves him. I have 47 hours and 53 minutes until the window opens. The hotel room tonight will tell me what I need to know. Belen. If the woman at the desk has a name tag that says Belen, then it's real. Then all of it is real. And then I will have to find out what kind of woman I am. The quiet, ugly, devastating kind of courage. I hope I have it. I hope to God I have it. Because somewhere in the world there is a version of Marcus who is 37 years old and running on a Saturday morning, and he is all right. And I want that version to exist. I want it more than I have ever wanted anything. I want it more than I want the hand around my fingers. I think I want it more than that. I have to go. I